This is Joe Mullings with The Other Side, live from 160 Studios in Delray Beach. Joining me today is Rajit Kamal, and Rajit is Vice President and Global Franchise Leader of the knee replacement business for Johnson & Johnson. And Rajit, again, thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Love having you on, and certainly appreciate our relationship over the years as well.
Of course.
So you're seeing some interesting times now. You are that leader for J&J in their knee replacement business, and I think everybody in the world knows the difference between elective surgeries and non-essential surgeries. So take us through what the current climate is. Give me the state of affairs as we sit today.
Absolutely, Joe. Maybe we start with when COVID started. It's been a very interesting, I would say, the last 8 to 9 weeks. We were going full capacity, and all of a sudden when work from home, stay at home orders came, everything came to a standstill. I think what the government did for the right reasons is to stop elective surgeries. Elective by definition are surgeries that are not urgent or that are not essential to save someone's life, something that you could delay because they wanted to keep hospital capacity for COVID patients. So overnight, we saw the business come to a standstill. Over the past couple of weeks, I would say from the beginning of the March, we have started to see it open up. So different parts of the country have started to get back to doing elective surgeries. Some regions are faster than the other. I think they are taking higher precautions, so the turnover is lower. But there are parts of the country, they're back to full capacity. Different parts are at different places. But the recovery is started. I think slowly the surgeries are ramping up in the US. Globally as well, I think China is almost back to full capacity. We are seeing Australia opening up. So yeah, back to the recovery phase of this crisis.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that with us. Are you running across, when you say state by state, and we're seeing this, we have 50 different states with 50 different protocols and perhaps hospital to hospital protocol changes as well. What's that like, trying to manage that dynamic?
Yeah, so it is hospital to hospital, it's county to county. I think the county leaders actually have the discretion to whether a hospital opens or not, right? So it's, we are managing account by account, surgeon by surgeon, not only how much are they opening, when are they opening, but which patients are they prioritizing is different as well. Some of the academic centers are saying they want to go for more urgent cases, or a revision case, or somebody who is in, sicker, has significant pain. Some are saying we are going to go for healthier patients. They don't have to stay overnight because we want to drive volume, right? So you see a lot of variety. I think for us, it is important to stay closer to our customers, understand, what they are expecting, what their needs are, and make sure that we are being flexible enough to meet their needs.
And the sensitivity, the report came out last week that hospital operating EBITDA margins fell 174% in April compared to last year. And that's even in spite of very aggressive cost-cutting measures. How does that potentially impact the way that we do business in the orthopedic implant business?
Yeah, so look, hospitals' margins are significantly challenged due to this crisis. And I don't expect that to fully recover before the end of next year. So there are two things happening, right? One, obviously, is the profitability part of it. But the second thing is the cash flow. I think hospitals won't have cash flows to make big capital investments, right? So some of the things we can expect, I would say, over the next few quarters is slow down in terms of capital equipment purchases. I do think we will see that slow down across the board within the hospitals. We will see them focus on more efficiency solutions. So can you get more cases in a day? Because look, the contribution margin of one more case is significantly high, right? And that goes right to the bottom line of a hospital because they have such a significant fixed cost. So that will be two, right? What are the right efficiency solutions that you can bring? The third thing will be higher scrutiny on pricing. I do think if you launch a new product in this environment, you need to have very good evidence to prove the cost benefit, not only clinical benefit, but the cost benefit that you bring to the customer. So I do expect those three things to play out over the next 12 to 18 months. The time duration, I think that will take for hospitals to get back to the EBITDA margins they were seeing pre-COVID.
Do you forecast or do you see the market changing in regards to what does that care model look like? Or are we going to have more procedures done in an ambulatory service surgery center? Are we going to remain in the large hospitals in a monolithic structure where the cost per square foot is dynamically different?
You know, we are going to see significant changes to the care delivery model. And there are two things I will highlight. One is where care is delivered, and I'll talk about that, like to your point, outpatient centers. The second also is how care is delivered. And Joe, what we will see is significant role technology will play in the care delivery model. I'm going to quote one of my customers who said, technology changes how we deliver care, not the care that we deliver. And I think that's a very important insight. What has happened in the last 8 weeks is the providers and the patients were forced to use technology. The payers created incentives. Medicare started reimbursing for that. And what they realized was they could deliver care effectively without compromising on quality, but more convenient way, in a more cost-effective way. So I think it has forced them into an experience that they say, you know what, I like this, right? So I want to figure out a way to continue using technology in my practice. So I do think we will see that. Pre-operatively, I think mainly post-operatively, a lot of post-op visits on the orthopedic side could move to virtual. You could see virtual rehab as well. So in terms of care delivery, the how will change with further significant adoption of technology, and where will change as well. We were already seeing a trend towards shift to outpatient. I think that will get significantly accelerated. But also do you have to really go back into a hospital for a post-op visit? Could you use, clinic in a Walmart, right? Could you use other centers which you don't have to go into a hospital? So I think you will see alternate sites of care emerging for pre or post-op visits. You will see outpatient surgeries emerging for surgeries, but also you see significant adoption of technology.
It's interesting that in the past, because as you know, I've been plugged into the teletherapeutic telemedicine for the longest time right now as a huge advocate of it. And until recently, it was really hard to convince a patient that they might get better service not having to stand eye to eye literally in front of their physician. But the second COVID came around and they had to weigh the potential risk versus buying into telemedicine. And I think the same from the caregiver side as well, that we're seeing, I think the number is 40% of consumers are still feeling uneasy about going into a hospital. And so therefore, the adoption and utilization of telemedicine has taken off. And have you seen that it's allowing our caregivers, surgeons, physicians to get back to practicing medicine and serving the patient more directly rather than all the bureaucratic administrative lift that had to go with that?
Absolutely. Just think about the potential of technology, right? You could have technology today where you do a virtual consultation and natural language processing can capture all the conversation you are having. It can not only capture it, it can upload it as well. So a surgeon can focus on the patient instead of, to your point, capturing information, uploading it in the EMR. Technology can really make them more effective, I would argue, and make it more convenient. I mean, think about patient demographics on the orthopedic side. We tend older. It's more convenient for them to engage with a surgeon if they don't have to go into a clinic than to drive, right? Sometimes patients live 2 to 3 hours away from where the surgery was done. I think it's convenience, but I also think some of the technology can really take the bureaucratic challenges that the surgeons have and really enable them to focus more on the patients.
And a crisis like this will expose the strengths and weaknesses in our systems. And clearly, this has accelerated probably what was going to be inevitable, but delivered it up, I think in hindsight, is going to be a quantum jump for healthcare and both, again, delivery of care, quality of care, value of care are all going to be reviewed. Orthopedics historically has been probably the least sophisticated surgical side if you compare it to neuro, interventional cardio, right, peripheral, right? How does that potentially change our healthcare continuum with the patient now? pre, surgical, and post?
Yeah, I think we will see significant adoption of technology. One thing with elective surgery, Joe, is it creates opportunities for adoption of technology. Let's take knee replacement, right? A surgeon has access to patients preoperatively. They can track the patients preoperatively. They can optimize them preoperatively. Technology enables them to do that in a very efficient and an effective way, right? They can use technology in the OR to plan the surgery, to execute the surgery, and then postoperatively monitor them. I mean, today, you get a surgery, you go back, the surgeon probably doesn't see you 4 to 6 weeks post-op, right? They don't know if you are doing your PT, if you are really being active, if if your range of motion is improving, are you recovering at the rate that you should? Technology enables you to do that and proactively intervene if you are not. So I think to your point, the adoption of technology in orthopedics has been low, but the potential is significant. And I think what this crisis has done is opened their eyes for the providers and the patients of possibilities it can have, to your point, make care more efficient, more effective, and more cost effective as well. So I do think we will see, and when I speak with my customers, that's the number one topic I get. Help me understand, what can J&J offer in terms of technology solutions? So I do see you will see a significant shift in terms of adoption of technology.
And that will become a platform for the large players like J&J, like Medtronic, like Abbott, and some of the others. Having said that, are we prepared as an organization, right? Historically, big med tech has not been digitally blessed. Let's be real in relative terms. Now, we've thrust the must of technology upon them, and leadership is not accustomed to that in regards to comparing it to an Amazon, a Apple, a Google, et cetera. So we're going to expect that digital excellence because we have it everywhere else in our life. So how does a J&J ramp up to speed very quickly when that is not a core competency?
It's a great question. And I think, I'll speak on behalf of any large company, right? Look, the way we innovate is going to be different. I mean, digital world is different, right? Number one is you don't have to do everything yourself. I mean, in technology, think about the collaborations Microsoft has or Google has. Sometimes they collaborate with their competitors. Microsoft signed a deal with Salesforce, right? So I think you will see some of that mentality and mindset come here as well, where you don't have to do everything on your own. Leverage the best. The technology innovation happens much faster outside than it will happen inside. The startups do a much better job of identifying an unmet need and moving much quickly. So I would say we need to develop capability on scanning what are the right technologies, creating an infrastructure to integrate them because speed will be important. So I think we need to think differently about how do we innovate in this space. And I don't think we need to do everything on our own. We definitely need to create the right infrastructure, make sure they are compliant from a privacy, security standpoint. But do we have to develop all the assets ourselves? I would argue no. I think to be able to make sure we are at the cutting edge of what is happening, we've got to get better at integrating, acquiring, licensing. I think all those things would probably be the best way to approach this.
Mm-hmm. I want to go down to the micro. So you've got a large sales force that comes up through your function. And what sort of protocols are you seeing in place for our sales and clinical support teams to walk in and out of a hospital or an ASC? What do those rules of engagement look like? And what sort of ways are you facilitating keeping that flow going?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I would say, when we speak with our customers, they continue to highlight the benefit our sales reps provide. I think on the orthopedic side, just given the complexity of the procedures, the instruments that you need, I continue to hear that, look, the role they play continues to be important, right? Having said that, look, there will be some restrictions. For certain cases, they might not be essential. So where they can move, where they can go will be restricted. Certain hospitals will require them to be tested. We need to make sure we are providing them with PPEs. Obviously, they are our employees, so we need to make sure we are doing the right things to protect them. But I think the role the reps play, we are looking at how do you leverage technology. I think technology will play a role in this as well, where how can you leverage technology to provide the support in the OR, say, for example. So, we are still working, and some of these needs differ hospital by hospital, Joe, to our earlier point, right? the protocols are different, the needs are different, the role the rep plays are different. So again, we need to be adaptable. But the first thing is to make sure our employees are absolutely safe and we are doing the right thing for the community as well.
I had a rep down here. I'll leave who he worked for out, but he was in the spine business, and he actually appeared in surgery from his iPad in a parking lot outside the University of Miami for a surgical procedure. He actually dialed in. There's companies like Proximy and Care Syntax and some others that are allowing reps and or teleproctoring to occur right there in the OR. And I'm guessing that's a very real peek behind the curtain about how we might be appearing moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I have been doing my job from home for the last 2 months, right? And I think I can do that job effectively. So can others, right? So absolutely, technology can enable you to do your job virtually if needed, right? So we just got to, I think what COVID has done is opened our mind to possibilities and probably forced us to get over that adoption hurdle, right? Where you have, will it work, will it not work? Well, you had no option. And now that you used it, you realize, you know what, it can work and work quite well. So it will drive that structural change for sure.
And certainly reimbursement has empowered that to occur, right? When I think Massachusetts, in fact, was the first state early in the COVID crisis to give a thumbs up to it being a reimbursable virtual visit, and they led the nation in that regard. So now that we're rewarding it and allowing doctors and caregivers and institutions to have that as a very reasonable way to meet their patients, I'm hoping we continue to push that forward and not suddenly try and stop it now.
I think reimbursement will be a key enabler. So, what happened in the COVID world was they were doing reimbursement parity. So whether you do face-to-face or virtual, you get reimbursed the same. And I think that is important. If they cut back on a virtual consultation reimbursement, you will see a lot of providers going back to face-to-face. So I think payers have a very important role to play in enabling this transition. And I do think there is benefit for the whole ecosystem. But just given our healthcare is structured, I think Medicare and the commercial players have a key role to enable that shift to technology.
Mm-hmm. So without playing too much of your J&J hand, what does the balance of the year look like for you, and what will you and your team be focusing on?
Well, I think, as I said, look, our focus is to make sure we are actively engaging with the customers, and as I said, the needs are different depending upon which part of the country they are in, which hospitals they are in. So our goal is to make sure we are there for them, understand what their needs are, we are flexible to be able to support them. Look, one of the things is we need to make sure that we have the right products at the right time to help them, right? So our goal is, number one, make sure we stay close to the customers. And I can tell you, we have done significant customer interactions over the past 8 weeks. Our customers had time as well, but we made sure that, we are connecting with them to understand what is going on and adapt our strategy based on, where the customers are located at. So that's number one. Number two, look, we also need to think short-term and long-term as well. So the short-term to make sure that we are meeting our customers' needs, but we also need to step back and say, how is this going to structurally change the industry that we play in? And what do we need to do differently than what we were planning in, say, February to stay competitive in this industry, right? What investments we need to make now? What changes we need to make now to make sure as industry evolves, we continue to be as competitive, right? So I think those are the two things, short-term, but I think not missing the opportunity to step back and look at what are the long-term implications and are we making the right investment to be prepared.
Yeah. And I think that sort of mindset, historically in my 30 years in the medtech industry, there's always been a battle of market share of 1 to 2 points back and forth between the major players. I do personally believe that you're going to see major swings in market share based upon those in ortho space especially, that truly maybe take it on the chin in the next 6 to 12 months from a technological standpoint and ramp up and get virtual and engaged in a digital way that ortho never has before, outside of a robot. Being a robot doesn't make you digital. Being a robot allows you to have some better skills during a revision or during a full knee replacement. But those who do engage with the customer, meaning the patient and the caregivers and the hospitals in a virtual fashion, I believe within 12 to 24 months will be 5 to 7 point spread in market share grab, and we're going to see who does that first.
That's a good point. I think you will see consolidation across the value chain. And any crisis you go back to, you always see, whenever the economy goes through an economic crisis, and this is a health crisis, but an economic crisis as well, you see consolidation. You will see provider consolidation. I'm hearing orthopedic surgeons are usually, majority of them are not employees of the hospital. You will see a trend where more become employees of the hospital. You will see consolidation across the value chain. So to your point, yes, there will be more shift in market share than what we have seen historically. I completely agree.
Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you that we should have discussed in regards to your sector of the business or your market in general?
No, I think the only thing I would say is, the sector that we play in is still very healthy. So these are the cases that are delayed but not lost, right? Once the recovery starts, once the hospitals get a handle on how to do the surgery safely, once the patients feel comfortable coming back, I think you will see this volume being made up by 2021, right? So the long-term fundamentals of our industry is very sound, very solid. And all that has happened, it has delayed. It will change how care gets delivered, but long-term attractiveness still stays the same.
Yeah, I think we'll look back on this period of time. It's going to be, I think, a year transition into however it declares itself as a blessing. It doesn't feel like that right now, but I think we'll look at it that way.
100% agree, Joe. 100% agree.
Well, I do appreciate your time and your insights as to your sector of the med tech world. I always appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. I wish you all the best.
It's great.
Thank you.
This has been Joe Mullings with The Other Side.